Hey guys, it's Tripl-L, and now let's talk some Death March, episode 4. Yeah, we're gonna talk Death March. Very quick note, I have some injuries in my mouth, and they're making it very hard to talk, and my words are getting a little bit slurred sometimes. So if you guys catch any of that, apologies, just letting you know. Anything else? No, that's pretty much it. Anyway, let's get into the video. I gave that little warning at the beginning. So yeah, Death March, episode 4. So overall, I really like this episode of Death March. It's a simple episode. It's just going through the dungeon. I really just enjoyed it. The characters are there. The characters are getting their moments. Actually, no. Before we get into that, let's cover this. Alright, listen. Death March. This ain't cool. I'm pretty sure, man. Pretty sure that there are different pronunciations for that boy's names. And I do not remember the justification right now. But I'm pretty sure Xena says Satu, and then at the end Arisa is saying Sato. I'm pretty sure. Let's play it.
Sato-san! Sato-sama? Sato-sama?
Like, yeah, man, like, what are you doing, Death March? Why are you playing this game with me? Just give me a pronunciation. I'm so self-conscious about my ability or my non-ability to pronounce Japanese names. Like, this is just making it worse, and I want to call him Sato, so if I can, I'm gonna do it. Anyway, not the point. Whatever. Moving on. It's just that little thing. I don't remember if it's a plot point. I'm not gonna go back to look, but whatever. Actually, no. Speaking of the Arisa part, that little bit at the end, I know it's a plot point. I know that it's speaking to this girl. Like, we saw this girl earlier. Like, she had weird titles on her. We saw the titles when she was passing by on that wagon cart way back when, 2 episodes ago. So, whatever. Not the point. So, I have a bunch of notes for here. We're gonna go through the notes. Some of the notes are more important than others. Some of them are just observations. And Death March is a relatively detail-heavy show just because it has the details popping up during the procession of events. So, you know, it just makes for some not interesting stuff. It just makes for like more things I have to keep track of. Anyway, we start off the episode with the hardcore leveling strategy. What we ultimately saw with Sato at the beginning was that he was trying to maximize the amount of experience gain that the girls would have. So this is pretty much RPG mechanics here. What he was doing effectively, and I'm pretty sure the episode did a good enough job explaining it, but we'll just cover it again. He's gonna finish off the enemies, but if the girls get involved in the fight, if they make like one tap, they'll get experience for the fight. It's kind of, if you know Pokemon, if you switch your Pokemon out without it doing anything, as long as it was in the battle, it's gonna gain experience. It's pretty much that kind of splitting system, although it's adapted towards 4 character parties pretty much. But it was still cool to see the initiative that Satu, oh Jesus Christ. It was still nice to see the initiative that Sato took in this episode, because it's just like, this is the management system. This is pretty much the gamer inside of him and his ability to, I guess, micromanage the girls. Overall, it's also very important because he could have just gone through the dungeon just doing things himself, but again, his virtue is that he's helping these people get stronger. Moving on. So around the 3-minute mark, we had a sequence with Pochi, and where she was freaking out, and I felt that was really funny. I thought that was so funny. It was very adorable as well. And then Sato was talking like he was a worried parent, and I really enjoyed that, because like, that is the dynamic that the characters will have when it comes to him, Pochi, and Tama. That's their dynamic in particular. So it's nice to see it getting played out here. Now, Pochi, in particular, I think you could argue that among the 3 girls, well, no, let's just say among the 4 girls, because Xena's technically included in that. Among the 4 girls, this was more or less Pochi's episode, because we do have her getting a bit more focus, especially when the human boy pops up. And this is kudos to the voice acting. I felt like it sounded really heartbreaking when she was talking about or saying that she can't give away the dagger. She sounded really desperate when she was trying to defend keeping the dagger. Just kudos to that. I really enjoyed that. It was a very simple thing, but I enjoyed it. The girl is not gonna, well, when you consider that she's a slave and she's been a slave since she's been born, she probably does have some kind of desperation when it comes to making sure her master is not mad at her. That mentality is still there, and it is also very interesting when you have the end of the episode and the girls are cheering that they are officially Sato's slaves. That kind of mentality just reminds you of like how bad the circumstances in some parts of this world, just how bad they are. And so like moments like that are just kind of, as a viewer in the modern world, you should, I think, just take a little second, just like, ugh. But it makes sense in context. It's just how unfortunate that world is. Moving on though, Pochi does give us a lot more, because aside from her interactions and just her coming up more, there was one little quip about the Tamer title. When Sato's calming down Pochi, he gets the Tamer title. And I really like what Sato said here, because I had the same reaction, like, that's kind of mean. But it does, however, open up another question about how the world perceives the Beastkin. And what I mean is, like, whatever facilitates Sato's systems may see the Beastkin as animals, as no better than animals, right? Like, what I'm saying is that the person, whoever manages, like, how would we say this? The programmer of the world Sato's currently traveling in, that programmer, by the presence of the Tamer title and by the way that it was ultimately unlocked, I feel it would be reasonable to argue that that entity has a bias against the Beastkin. Now, that's just a small thing, but it's just, the fact is, Sato got the Tamer title when, conventionally speaking, that doesn't seem right unless there is discrimination going on from the person who's facilitating Sato's experience in that world. But that's just a small little detail. You could take it or leave it, do whatever you want with it. Next point that I wanted to mention was the Sky Deer jerky. Like, man, this is like Toriko, like, you know, that one Shonen Jump manga about eating food. But yeah, overall, we got to see a lot of food in this episode. We saw the Sky Deer jerky. That just sounds amazing. And the toad or the frog skewers or something like that. I love the food, and you know, Death March is always going to have that little moment where it just pulls away to look at the food. The next little point I wanted to bring up was finding the house and then the magic scrolls. Now this is where we can like start talking about what's getting left behind in terms of the adaptations. So the house ends up being there, like the dungeon was not created with the house. The house ended up being there because it was teleported in with the dungeon. Because of that, the items that you find within the house aren't necessarily Sato's items. So they're pretty much stealing, and I do recall that the manga and the novel made a little note. They had that little moral note that, yeah, you know, this isn't the nicest thing to do, but the person isn't going to be coming back to this house, so might as well just go and take the fire scroll and the frying pan. Note, Death March made a note that they got a frying pan. Anyway, that was just one little thing, because we ended up going into that montage in that around that time of the sequence. So at that point, what ultimately ended up getting sacrificed was just the, I guess, how would you say it? The not so important slice of life element. Like Sato taking items from a house that was never going to be visited again isn't that big of a deal in the context of the story. It is, however, a bigger deal when it comes to just rounding out Sato's character. It is a big deal when it comes to like working out what exactly are his moral systems when it comes to simple things like that. Because there's a different impression that from the kids finding a house and then taking items versus Sato having the quick little like argument in his head justifying why it's okay to take the items, right? It's one of those things. It won't matter in the long term pretty much, because Sato's character is going to be demonstrated to us through other events. But little things like that is where people might start to just have like the little questions that while not really hampering the experience, you just kind of take away what fleshes it out pretty much. Moving on. Let's see, other note that I have here. Oh yeah, we meet Jin, the noble, halfway through that can use magic. And the note I have here is that I like the game introduction. You know, you go into a dungeon, you release the NPC, and the first thing the NPC does is tell you who he is and why he's important. And it's just like, alright, that it's a video game. And it just, again, does remind you, the first volume really is just an efficient race to the end of the volume. Like, it just wants to do its thing, establish this, and start playing with the characters that it's amassing. So like that little moment just pretty much simple, but it was just funny, the novelty of the game-like experience. Moving on. I have a note about when the girls have their victory moment. Oh, this is when they were fighting the slimes and they're all very happy, and they do like that, you know, it's like they just got experience off beating a slime, I think. Next point, this is right around when Xena met up with Sato around the 11-minute mark. Oh yeah, the nun. So Xena was jealous because she is into Sato. We all see that, and I just like that the nun said you can question him about cheating later. What's very funny, it's just one of those quick little things. I'm glad they kept that line in. It's just just kind of, you have to pay a certain amount of attention to all the girls while they're still there, and so little moments like that just kind of funny, just to remind you that this girl is gunning for the boy. Moving on, this is now going into the demon fight, because this is where things start to get, where the action started to ramp up a little bit. So first off, it's interesting to note that the monsters can hide themselves if they're pretending to be a treasure chest. Sato mentioned it in the episode that he didn't notice that the demon was there because it was hiding as a mimic. That was pretty interesting, because at the same time, this was the demon that Sato knew was inside of someone's body. So it's interesting that the mechanic of being a mimic is actually trumping whatever map system Sato has. Very interesting. That is a very interesting detail in general. Moving on, the mass confusion sucks. I hate when I get mass confused whenever I'm playing an RPG, and seeing it here, yeah, still as annoying as I thought it was. And as we go through that fight, Sato is of the perspective, he doesn't want to reveal himself too much. He doesn't want to make a big deal. And the thing is, considering especially that the demon, like a high level demon, a demon that could ruin things, is level 62. God forbid how the world would react if they found out that Sato was level 310 and also a god killer. No, like there is a reason why Sato doesn't want to cause that kind of commotion. So him going away and finally coming out as Nanashi and coming in there, the merciless one, wearing his mask, wearing the wig, the items that we saw earlier off in the, I think the second episode when he was shopping, they come into play here, and here we have the guy going through and slashing at the demon. And so this fight in itself has a lot of interesting mechanical things going on. We have the fire shot, how Sato pretty much cranked it up to 10, and at that point it looked like it was a high level spell. Really enjoyed that. And then Sato's whole logic about the titles. I really liked how he came to the conclusion, well, if a hero can kill a demon lord, or a demon that's called a demon lord, then obviously a god killer should be able to kill a demon lord, because a god killer has to be higher than a hero. I like that logic. I liked it so much. It was excellent. It's just one of those funny little things. It's just the use of hierarchy, and just, that's gamer logic. That's so gamer logic. I really enjoyed it. So those are pretty much all the giant broad stroke notes, and we're already at 13 minutes. God dang it. Last thing that I guess I'll really talk about is the titles, and this is again going into the mechanics of the system. It is interesting how much titles matter, because at this point, when you look at it from the system of the world, a monster is pretty much untouchable unless you have the title put in. So it goes to the point that it doesn't matter how strong your sword is, if you don't have the title that gives you the right to hurt the monster, you're pretty much screwed. So it's interesting, titles do matter a lot, and this goes back to that point about the Tamer title. Given that the system revolves around titles, Sato getting the Tamer title for being nice to a beastkin girl, that's very odd, and it does just make things feel a little bit heavier just because the titles matter this much. Now that's the only real point that I can give you guys. Otherwise, it's just very interesting, like seeing how important one title is gives the impression that all titles are important at least one specific scenario. And so this is also going to be something that's going to be important in Death March. It's going to be the title swapping, because as we see, like, Sato gets a lot of titles at the end. He got 3 titles, I think. Well, he has the merciless one for throwing a stone at the demon's eye, and then he has the hero titles, the god killer title, we saw how important that was, and a few other titles I can't really recall right now. I think there might be a dungeon dweller title or something like that. Anyway, cool stuff overall. Titles matter. It's just unfortunate that we're not going to get to see him play with all the titles. Like, a good part of Death March was also the experimentation process and figuring out what he could do. But that's going to be something I think we're going to sacrifice. Anyway, we end off the episode with Sato getting in front of the 2 other girls in the opening. And the first one is Lulu, who Sato describes as frail and cute. And then we have Arisa, who called him Sato. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It's going to be interesting to see where we go from here. I'm excited. I want to see these girls. I want to see them doing stuff. And yeah, guys, let's call it there. Thanks for watching. And till next time, I hope you have a great day. I hope you enjoyed the episode.